Welcome to the inaugural episode of the Captain's Table. I'm Mara,
I am Spencer.
Uh, and I'm Cheops.
and this is a new podcast where we talk about Star Trek Online and things of the high end, news, and other topics. Spencer, if you'd maybe introduce yourself and tell us why you're here.
I am one of the most casual players in all of Star Trek Online. I like to open lock boxes. I like to spam the spacebar, and I like to make YouTube videos.
And Cheops?
He also likes to constantly mispronounce things and make me laugh. And I just kind of casually DPS here and there and try to make the most of a 15-year-old game.
Cool. I'm Mara. Some of you may have known me in the past as Sizer. I've been an on again, off again DPS player and theory crafter. And I really hope to use this podcast to open a dialogue between our realm and the player base at large. Really pull back the curtain on the things we do and the ways we think. Maybe do a little education.
Yeah, I love the divide. It's the poor guy at the bottom, and we're gonna open a new world for you.
Terrible.
Get you from that 2K DPS up to 2 mil in the blink of an eye. All you gotta do is copy our builds.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's definitely something I want to talk about at some point.
I'm sorry, I'm already derailing it.
No, go for it.
That's what you get,
There's
That's true.
there is such a divide in the community. Like there's that enormous swing range between people who are doing 2000 DPS and us doing multi-millions, and that's a bridge I want to build.
Yeah, there's
Yeah,
a
it would
lot
be
of.
nice.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I wonder how many of the people that are at 2K DPS would even be listening to a podcast like this.
Well, I mean, I definitely want to reach out and
For sure.
and make it accessible.
Yeah,
What
I
were you going
think
to say, Spencer?
that there's a lot of information out there that isn't conveyed very well to the player base at large, and hopefully, that's something we can tackle with this podcast.
Yeah, no, it's really exciting. So, why don't we start off with covering some news? So we're in the middle of the Black Friday sale, and I know some people weren't really excited about some of the sale points.
The initial sales blog listed just two things: the 25% discount on everything in the Zen store, and then the 25% charge bonus for PC. And that looked very underwhelming. But that has been cleared up that there is going to be some more sales coming up at the end of next week, or I guess the end of this week, including the Muds bundle sale that we have been missing pretty much the entire year. And the thing to keep in mind is, the Black Friday sales, they've never really been the best sales in the game. The best sales in the game have typically popped up at the end of December with the end of year winter sales. So right now is really the best time to pick up Zen. And if you want a Muds bundle, get it during that sale. But otherwise, just wait for the better sales that are going to pop up a month from now.
Yeah, and I know people were really looking forward to a 35% bundle sale because last year we got that, but historically we've only gotten this 25% sale. And while we were kind of all hoping for it, I expect to get something better for the holidays.
Plus, didn't we get a 35% bundle sale like not that long ago?
Yeah, like
Yeah.
2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah. My expectations for this were dampened a little bit because none of the Zen that I had tried to buy went through. I put in an order at the beginning of October, like October 2nd, and I still haven't got it yet. So it's just like, well, there goes my enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's something that's definitely been worrisome is this ridiculous dill backlog. That's something I really hope Deca takes an interest in is providing us with a lot more dill syncs. We just don't have any anymore.
Yeah, right now, with where the DilEx is right now, I looked at this just a couple hours ago. You're looking at around 2 months, around 60 days for an order to go through that is posted today. So hopefully we see something done to help speed that back up.
Isn't Neverwinter's exchange their similar thing? Isn't that like a year backlog now?
I think it peaked around that, and the thing over there is they also tried to raise the DilEx cap from 500 to 750, and all it did over
Yeah.
there was make it instantly go to 750 and then have a backlog still. So it just made the situation even worse.
Yeah, I know that was Cryptic's jam. I just hope they don't try something like that here.
Yeah, and there was a lot that Cryptic shied away from that it never really made sense to me. There's a lot of things that currently cost Zen that should probably cost Dilithium.
Oh
Like
yeah.
like the reputation buyout would be a really easy play to make Dilithium, because so many of us spin up new tunes and don't want to spend 30 days grinding reputation to equip them. I would dump Dil on that.
See, I think I know enough people who have actually spent money on the reputation buyout. The thing I was thinking of was something like the training, the retraining, because selling that for actual cash is just stupid at this point, especially with how many of those things you can just get for free.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if that had been Dill or something a bit more easily accessible, I know Cryan had mentioned things like that to the devs, but they just kind of either shot it down or they said, well, I mean, people will still buy them.
Yeah, I'm gonna send a picture to both of you, but Crying over in the Reddit Discord was recently talking about, some of the proposals they had for updating the GPL store and just GPL and Dill stuff. The issue was the time required to get it all tested and properly done. It just they didn't have time to allocate to that. Wasn't high enough of a
Yeah,
priority.
that's a shame. I know you and I, Spencer, had talked about bringing the Vanity Shield store back permanently. I mean,
And
those
updating it.
those are a decent, yeah, and updating it
Hmm.
for sure. Those are a decent chunk. I mean, those are six figures. I don't remember what the shield cost is off the top of my head, but that's a decent whack.
250.
Yeah, so it's like $5 per shield.
Yeah, that's a decent whack right there.
Yeah.
I mean, I would hate if they actually made them character bound, but I mean that would be a hell of a dill sync.
Yeah, and I do want to address a common solution that I hear of injecting Zen directly without it being purchased, and that's just never going to happen.
Nope.
I
No,
think
it is.
the biggest Dill sinks we've historically seen in the game were fleet holdings, and I don't know how feasible it is for us to get another fleet holding at this point, but even if there was just an expansion or some new items put into the existing fleet holdings, that might be a good route to go as well. They did try some additions to the fleet holdings a couple years ago, but it was not the best execution. The duty officers they put in were basically just copy paste of the very rare DOFs, just increased up to ultra rare and at like 20 times the price.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember those. I was gonna say they killed it too with the introduction of the random TFOs, where anybody can just get those, because at that point there's no when they were so rare and so hard to get, then re-rolling was an actual option. But now, since they're so dirt cheap, it's like, why would you bother re-rolling them?
Yeah. And they need to add in some more variants too, like a max aux power variant.
For sure.
Ice and
For
mag for aux
sure.
power. Yeah, I mean, I'd love that.
Well, I've got turn on mine.
Oh no.
Yeah, no, definitely. We really need to see solutions here. I mean, we can talk all day about potential solutions. It's whether or not they start listening, which I I I hope we start seeing feedback from them and engagement from them soon. Maybe now that Kale is out, we'll start seeing the CM.
Well, didn't you talk to somebody recently? They were just mostly waiting for everything to be spooled up, some licensing issues to be taken care of,
Yeah,
contracts, etc.
that's what I was officially approached about. Yeah, was
Yeah.
they're starting to spool things up, and we should see them start to communicate here soon.
That's reassuring. So yeah, other recent news, the Areore Miracle Worker Juggernaut dropped, and that was really interesting.
Yes, the Areore,
Yeah, the Areore.
which sounds like a Disney character the way you say it.
The accessories on it have been fairly disappointing. The built-in lance on it just it doesn't really do that well compared to something like the Juggernaut array on the Vodwar Juggernaut.
Yeah, I mean, the Valbar Juggernaut's array is uniquely powerful, and I really wish that same kind of attention was put into arrays. There just seems to be fear around that kind of thing.
I mean, hell, even the Shrike's Juggernaut, which is bad because of the charge up, is better because this also has a charge up.
The console at least is pretty apparently bugged. Like on my initial testing, it was so like nothing. It scales with nothing. It scales
Oh,
with
that was
nothing.
the same with the Lance too, no?
The Lance I think scales. It
Okay.
just scales very poorly.
Mm.
But the console when I pop APA, it doesn't scale. I pop GDF, it doesn't scale. I pop all damage consoles on, it doesn't scale. The only thing it scales with is weapon power. Which
I think I'm
is
the only
just,
one here that didn't get one.
yeah, I was super interested in it at least when I saw the stats, but like sitting in it recently with Michi, another DPS runner, another player named Kraus, and myself have sort of been racing, hug running, and pushing our numbers, and we've sort of established a little bit of a new meta when it comes to left-right ISE runs, and the Areore isn't it anymore. Like with regards to like flying the Juggernaut, the Vodwar Juggernaut, and what we used to consider a high-end ship, it's still powerful, but we kind of rely on speed and universal consoles. And now with the hexacannons, an experimental weapon that came out with the Achilles being so powerful, it's kind of changed the way we look at ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, I figured on a left-right run, even with the uncon, it would still fall behind.
It's
Yeah,
it's not a bad ship. It's just it's a good ship for 2 to 3 years ago. It's that sort of situation. The meta has definitely moved past that for the majority of players. And honestly, I think it was a mistake for it to be a Juggernaut. I think if this had been like a TAC carrier, 5/2 TAC carrier like the Zenkethi, I
Yep.
think this would have been a crazy popular ship. But as is, it's too close to the VOD Jug and the Legendary Avenger, and I just don't think it does enough different to warrant really picking it up.
Yeah, I've got a Juggernaut, I've got a Shrike, and this thing is like kind of, I wouldn't even say it's in the middle. It's like touching both of them. It's if you just peeled the Juggernaut back, oh, there's the Areore, and if you peel that back, oh, there's the Shrike. So it's at the when I was looking at it, I thought, I think I'm not going to get this one.
yeah, it's definitely gonna end up being a bit of a hanger bunny for me. I kind of regret the purchase. I was excited to play around with the inertia rating, because that's one thing it does have going for it, is that it doesn't power slide as much, but you can kind of, if you start your turn later than you would in the Vodwar Juggernaut, you can sort of pinpoint position yourself, and that's really nice. But it's just it's a little slow. It's a little like it's slower than what I fly now, which is the mirror angle, and it doesn't have the same uncon potential, and it doesn't have access to that hexacannon.
Yeah, it's one of those ships that in a straight line, it's kind of like the Juggernaut. Like I wouldn't mind flying it probably at HSE maybe, but even then, there's a bit at the end where I need a little bit of maneuverability, and it's like, this ain't it.
Yeah, it's in a situation where at the very high end, we're going to use the Legendary Avenger regardless. And, for bug runs, like you said, the meta's moved away from these Merc Worker Intel combos for your left-right pug runs.
I was gonna say, like in high end left rights, I've found that like we kind of want the hexa. Like it's kind of nuts.
Yeah, and it's funny though. I still get approached, spoken to on Discord. by people who are flabbergasted that I would recommend something that didn't have 7 or 8 isomags.
Yeah, we've really kind of moved past max isomags, and it hasn't trickled down yet to the community at large. But I guess to sort of talk about it here, we've kind of adopted a wide range of universal consoles because we have the ability to spend them so often now with the Woven console and high uncon potential ships that we have consoles that are doing 50 to 150,000 DPS on their own, and that just far and away outstrips what a single isomag contributes to your ship. Like my angle build has 4 isomags on it, and that's perfectly sufficient now.
Yeah, I've had people ask on that point too, like, should they go for the Inquiry or is the Legendary Avenger fine with 1 less isomag? And I've been saying that to them for a while. Well, just go with the Legendary Avenger. It's got better maneuverability, and you have these other consoles you need to slot instead. So if you go with the Inquiry, you're going to be dropping an isomag anyways.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, when isomags first came out, it was the general rule: if you have space for isomags, throw them all in there. I mean, and you can still get away with that, but if you have access to all this other stuff, it's like you can just see your isomags just going away one by one by one.
Yep.
And for the general play, for the average player who doesn't want to be microing so hard, yeah, high isomag ships are still a really good option. Like
Yep.
when you're playing with C-store ships, the Bozeman is still a killer.
Yeah.
We've kind of moved past it all. We have all of these consoles that you can keep up forever. Like Adaptive Emergency Systems has kind of had a new life breathed into it because you can keep that up permanently.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
Fleet Power too. That in Adaptive, you can immediately start to hit with Uncon and Woven as soon as you've activated them.
Mm-hmm.
So you can really spam them a ton.
Yeah, no, it's really changed. So the Areore just doesn't really fit anymore.
Yeah, Merc Worker. I understand why a lot of people, like those Commander Merc Worker ships, but with there not being any Merc Worker uncons, they're just really falling behind with how the meta is shifting. Or it's like temporal intel.
Yeah, for sure. And for us, maybe not a spicy take, but for maybe a lot of people, hot take: mixed armament synergies and narrow sensor bands, not a big deal.
Yeah, the amount of times I'll have people, like when I'll do a combined arms build, and it's like, well, you don't have mixed armament synergy. I'm like, well, you don't need it. That ability is nice if you have it for a very limited window. It only lasts for 10 seconds, and that's if you're cycling your weapons properly.
Yeah, 10 seconds every, what is it, 30 or 40?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, it's really, with Merc Worker, the only reason at the high end it's seen as being valuable at all is really just down to the extra console. Like the Merc Worker abilities have just fallen so far behind. It is the weakest specialization right now.
We have so much Cat 2 saturation that I think I averaged them out at one point and it was like 7 or 8% average. Like, that doesn't matter. Miracle Worker abilities just don't really matter that much anymore. When they came out, that was really tasty. But this isn't, what was it, like, when did the Vanguard War, when the Tucker, it was the Tucker and those ships came out?
2017.
Yeah, that's somewhere around there. Yeah, and narrow sensor bands and mixed armaments is also really good at the high end because those runs only last 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds. So the ability is up for half the run.
Yeah, 2017.
Yeah, so it's been years and years, and we've just moved past it.
And the thing is, Merc Worker does have abilities that are technically controlled, but for whatever reason, they just don't work with Uncon.
Yeah, I wish that would be fixed, and maybe that'll get looked at. I mean, it's a new team. Speaking of a new team, like the Areore does demonstrate that, like, they're looking at things that might please us.
Yeah, I hope so. That would be a nice indication.
Yeah, it is an exciting prospect.
Although they do have, I know a lot of people give Borticus flack, but he is still technically at the helm. So he'll be doing a lot of direction for some of these new ships,
Yeah.
which could be good, could be bad, depending on where his mindset is.
People give attribute Borticus with so many things he did not do. And it's largely because has been, over the course of the history of the game, the most front-facing dev with a position of relative authority. And so every time something happens that the community doesn't like, it was Borticus, Borticus, Borticus. But I can tell you confidently that a lot of the nerfs and a lot of the designs that people didn't like were not him.
Plus, people tend to fixate whenever a dev says something on Twitter or says something that's unpopular, or anybody says anything on Twitter that's unpopular. People will remember that one tweet, and then that's the opinion locked for the rest of their time spent wherever they are.
And as the most public-facing person on the systems team through the game's life, especially like any systems related things that people didn't like, got attributed to him.
Yeah.
And he took the hit because he was the lead there, so he was just covering for what the rest on the team did.
Well, I can tell you, like, one of the most unpopular changes, if y'all remember the plasma console and feedback pulse meta of 2016, when that was all nerfed, everyone was like Borticus, Borticus, Borticus. That wasn't Bort. That wasn't Bort. I won't go into who that was, but it definitely was not Bort. and he got so much blame for that.
That entire era passed me by. I played off and on, but I wasn't that into it to really even notice anything.
That was when I got into DPS really for the first time. That's when we met Spencer.
Yeah, I remember.
Spencer was abusing the OP stuff.
Always.
He was exploiting and gatekeeping behind an elite community.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was definitely a fun time. The cheese was real. And we've kind of got it all over again with complex plasma fires being real.
And it was always funny too, is every time they would go through and nerf, something that was cheesy, that was, overpowered, that they would hit it because a bunch of people would be complaining about it. And then we'd come back, a month later with something even more powerful. How many times do we see something nerfed and then, a bunch of people took quite a bit of a hit there when those items got hit, and then we just came back out like at the high end, finding something new and even better, and pushing records much higher.
So recently, wasn't it Jesse that said, we don't want to make anything too powerful, like immediately after they released the Pavin?
And the Fleet Power Network Array and the Type 7s? Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, dude, that ship has sailed.
That might have been in relation to the limited time event rewards, which is ironic right after the Pavin Omni.
Yep.
I think with the Pavin Omni, if it had released 2 to 3 years ago, with the dev situation being different, I think we would have seen it nerfed. But given everything going on this year, I think that's why we've seen it slide by.
Yeah. And I remember when it first came out, I was ecstatic. Like I rushed that day one, and I was shocked at how cool it was, especially with the
I see what you did
there. The inherited fall mechanic. That's just not, like, aside from just the raw damage output, which is insane. Just the inherited fall mechanic is so cool.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think now they're not in a position to really do a lot of nerfing.
No, the consumer confidence in the game is near rock bottom right now, and I just simply don't think they can afford to do any nerfs anytime in the near future. They have to build up customer trust with them before they can try to do anything like that.
Yeah, they'll nerf it when it gets to MUDs.
That's usually how it goes.
Yeah. Sorry, the cynic in me is not allowed to think positive thoughts.
All right. On that note, like state of the game, how are we feeling right now?
Things are
Uh,
certainly pretty slow. Which everything right now, the bit of the rough patch we're seeing, this was all expected. Um, Market engagement is down. Prices on some popular stuff on the exchange is up quite a bit. There's clearly less supply and also less demand for some things. I think the winter event, starting up in a week and a half, 2 weeks, is gonna get things to stir back up a bit. We'll see some more activity, and then I think it's all riding on the anniversary event.
Yeah, I think it is really important to remember that the transition has to take time, that it is a brand new team learning on an archaic bootstrapped engine, and that the delay in releasing new content that isn't just ships is definitely a good thing, at least from where I'm sitting. It's demonstrating that they're not rushing.
it's definitely good for my
Uh,
wallet.
I am super happy with the very high quality of the art recently.
Oh yeah, for a lot of MMOs, like the art team will carry, and then it's just up to everybody else to just keep the gameplay experience in line with how good the art is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
quality of everything certainly has gotten better as time's progressed, and especially in the last year, they've been bringing in new artists, and we have seen a bit more effort going into, especially some of the marketing material. The Heritage Bundle, the art that they did there for that video, that was really great.
And you can tell when they bring on people who are enthusiastic about what they're doing. Like I've known of Pundus for a while, and when he was brought on, I was just like, oh, okay, this should be interesting. And then immediately I could tell, oh, I'm seeing a difference now. Thomas has always been seemed like he's been really into it too, but now he's interacting with people who are just as into it as he is. So clearly it shows.
Yeah, and there seems to be a theme of really going hard on the nerdy stuff. Like
Oh yeah.
Heritage on its own was reaching back into, old Star Trek beta canon and bringing it forward. Like that was so exciting. Like I grew up with Dominion Wars, like which is a deep cut. So when I saw the Achilles, I lost it.
Yeah, same with the Typhoon. I don't know people that absolutely went gaga over that ship.
Mm-hmm.
And kudos to them for making that an actual event ship.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, I'm curious. How often do you guys, to both of you, like, and yes, about the state of the game in general, but how is the state of the game for you, like personally? Like, do you for your like how often do you play it, and are you really into it as you were before? Are you kind of taking a little bit of a break? You still plugging away?
Up until a couple of days ago, I've been pretty consistently on my beat, um, pushing numbers. I just recently um, hit a new left right record, which was really exciting. And then for the last 4 or 5 days, the server performance has tanked real hard, and that's kind of been really depressing me and my like desire to play.
Yep.
Yeah, the server performance has been the most impactful factor for why I have been playing the game less over the past couple of months. I still log in, get my dailies done. I'll check some stuff on the exchange, but for me, even doing the solo runs I like to do, the server performance just isn't there. I'll be hitting abilities and they're not going off. I'm gonna see rubber banding at some times of the day, even if I turn a VPN on to get a different route to the server. It's just the game just right now, the servers just don't seem to be able to handle things.
Yeah, I very like I seem to have had fairly good luck compared to you guys with my runs, but like a couple of days ago, I had CSV misfires on every beat, every single run for 3 hours. We could not get a run in. and I've never experienced that.
Yeah, we've had some infected. We're doing really fast split runs, and if everything's going right, we can get those done in right around or even under 20 seconds for the entire run. But we've had instances where the server will be in such a poor state where we'll take out the things on the side and we're waiting for the spheres on the sides to come in and the cube at the center, and we've seen as high as a 15-second delay for those items to spawn into the map, and that ruins what we're trying to do.
Yeah, it's disheartening. I mean, I'm in the same boat as Spencer. I log in, kind of do the dailies, and every once in a while I'll try and do something solo or like a little quick pug. But I kind of avoid ISE now because that seems to be where the worst of it is, because it's probably by far their most popular instance. And like you two know, I've been living in Hive for a while, and that one doesn't seem as popular. And since you can just exit and restart it as many times as you want, that's just kind of where I've been living.
Yeah, but even that has been starting to see some issues
Degrade.
recently.
Yeah.
And part of the
Yeah.
issue we think is because of how many instances of the map are like hosted on the same thread or whatever on the server. We saw when Organic Nebula was, causing issues way back in February. One person hitting that in one instance was visibly causing multiple other instances of the same map to experience just terrible lag. So if someone's in another map hitting a bunch of stuff on a build, that can impact what you're seeing in your instance of the map.
And the frustrating thing about talking about server performance is a lot of people don't see issues with server performance because they're not in environments that
Yeah.
where that's an issue. Like if you're just flying in circles around a couple of mobs and you want to shoot them and have a good time, then it's not going to really bother you. But when you have to hit certain abilities at the exact moment you need to hit them and they don't go off, it's like, this is rough.
Yeah, and like to trying to keep interest through it, I know all of us have been sort of breaking off into
Our own
sort
little
of
groups,
doing
yeah.
little
Side activities.
little side activities, yeah, like solo running, and I got off and I did my my first bit of content for the first time in years, where I started cataloging every single ground gun in the game to see what performed best in the context of a weapon build. We're kind of just sort of entertaining ourselves at this point.
Yeah, I sat in Hive. I didn't lose my mind completely and do that. I mean, that's like medication levels of what are you doing?
I mean,
But
I
it paid off.
am on a lot of medication.
Well, there you go. It paid off though when it turned out to be a pretty informative read. Nobody gives a rat's ass about me sitting in Hive, but you actually produced something useful.
I mean, I try.
Yeah, I would log into HSA and do a run, look at the DPS, and like, oh, I got 5 minutes for cooldowns now, so I would just go do something else at work or just read something on another monitor, and then try it again. And I was in there for like 2 weeks, almost a month.
That wait time is always so lovely, the 5 minutes between attempts.
Yeah, you grow to hate that little green circle called QSM.
Yep.
And I mean, even with that, you were pulling off some remarkable stuff.
Oh, well, I mean, when you're old and you're stubborn and you just keep throwing yourself the same thing over and over again, something's bound to go right eventually. But yeah, that was a fun time, just trying to see, well, I got it at 8 seconds, can I get it below 8 seconds? And just I think I started at like 30 seconds, and then it just kept getting better and better and better.
I think there's another word for continuing to throw yourself at the same thing over and over and suffer like that.
It's not insanity, and no, it is not. That's a misnomer and a misconception. That is determination and chutzpah, or however you say it.
Terrible.
Yeah. I know that there's sort of been a burgeoning solo running community of late, of people running various maps on their own. I know, Spencer, you definitely participated in that. I did too. You want to speak on that a bit?
Yeah, well, and part of that is because with Oscar, we have solo tables up, so you can go in, and if you don't have a team to play with to try and do record runs, there's the solo tables, and anyone can go in and do the Q solo on PC. going in solo, another factor to it is the server performance. Yeah, you can still run into some issues, but you're less likely than if you go in with a full team. It's generally going to be a bit smoother. It's not perfect. You're still going to run into some issues, as Cheops has seen, but it can be a less frustrating experience sometimes, and it can also certainly be more frustrating if you happen to just be on during a day where the server just doesn't care and is not having it.
It's nice to have little goals because this game doesn't have an end. I mean, I keep trying to tell people this game has no end game. The end game is what you make of it. So, I mean, if that's for solo runs, DPS chasing, Barbie, you just want to get together with friends and fly around, this is once you get to end game, once you get to the end of your leveling in the story, it's just sandbox.
Yeah, it's due to the reputations. And another thing too with the solo stuff, there's the record aspect of it to try and compete on the tables, but also for some of these queues, it's just seeing if you can actually do them solo. Things like
Yep.
gravity kills. People hate that, and it's not uncommon for full teams to fail that. Same with Corfez, and showing that there are ways that you can actually do them solo. It's fun to brainstorm the build and the tactics required to do that, and it's just fun to show that it is possible, that is a challenge that can actually be accomplished.
You've been doing Corfez, haven't you, Mara?
I did. I have done it. I have completed a few core fezzes, though. The one thing that I did recently that I'm proud of and kind of sad that I did was I went into the hive with just the co-op Milat sword, and I beat that.
Yeah, I saw that post in the Bill's Discord. I was like, this is a person who should up the dosage.
Yeah, it was very tedious. I don't know why I did it. But and I honestly I've only done it once. I've tried to replicate it because I forgot to start my video recorder when I did it. But it was a thing I did.
I know people that, I think once you get to a certain level of playing any game, there are people who just like it becomes stubborn, and once they commit to a thing, they're just going to do it. Like Michi in ISE, just trying to do torps and get the highest record he could with that. He did that over and over and over until he got it. And it's just some like level of like, I want to
Insanity.
say, yeah, that requires you to be able to sit in one spot and do the same thing until you actually, come away ahead.
That's one of the things I actually do really love about like the higher end community is that it isn't just about running ISC over and over again. It's these crazy challenges we set for ourselves. It's the encouragement we give each other on this stuff all the time. There's a lot of just friendly camaraderie about it.
Yep, and the
And
willingness to help people that want to get into the scene because there's so few of us that it's nice to have people come on board.
And it's not always just
yeah,
about the overall top performance. It's like you said, just finding your own challenges, too. If you want to see how far you can push a tort build, an EPG build, there's metas for each of those to push those to their limits.
And we all share. Like if somebody discovers something new or an innovative way to try something, it's like, hey, have you tried this? Let's see what that does for your damage. And we just go back and forth.
And a lot of that
yeah.
gets buried in the builds Discord, which I know just has a lot of channels. But if you are really interested in a specific niche, there's typically a section for that on there, and there's going to be conversation about things.
Yep. And there's not one person in there that I've ever run into that's not willing to help.
And I mean, like you two can both attest to the fact I am obnoxious. I'll whenever something new comes out, I am in your DMs like, hey, have you tried this? Look at this thing I just played with and discovered that this might work. This might work.
Yeah, ping, 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 ping. It's like, oh shit, what's Mara doing now?
Yeah, whenever something new drops, and I'll try to do a stream whenever stuff goes live, but I'll be looking at my Discord, and depending on who's messaging me, it's going to be like, oh, this thing's probably really good. And if this person's messaging me, it's like, okay, we probably have a problem. Something's probably screwed up.
Yeah, and I know which person is for both of those.
Yeah, I know you do.
No, and like I've definitely heard accusations that like we keep things secret, and that couldn't be further from the truth. Like it's just that it's sometimes hard for information to circulate because we don't have anything centralized anymore. Like our stow builds isn't as central as it used to be.
Yeah, and one of the most annoying things recently was that whole uh, preload swapping debacle that came out from like three people. That was so annoying. With it's like you're keeping this under wraps. Like, dude, the entire run is filmed from start to finish. Where is the wrap? Uh, yeah, that it's stuff like that. But that's really those things are few and far between. Most of the time, it's just you know there's a pat on the back. There's a bit of encouragement. There's people going, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that. Can you show me how?" Yeah, sure. This is what you do, and this is the best way to do it. And then they go, "Oh, that really helped my DPS," or didn't if they don't know what they're doing. But yeah, most of the people are very positive. But there are, like in every community, there's a few people that are just a bit dickish.
Yeah, and like that's kind of what I hope that we can do here is disseminate as much information as possible, or at least point people in the direction. Like we have the builds Discord, which I try and point people at. There's the wiki server, which is where I live a lot, and
Yeah.
and help people on a more personal level because there's less going on.
Plus, newer people tend to filter more towards the builds wiki or the stow wiki. Then,
Mm-hmm.
since you're there all the time, and most of the people there are there all the time, I see the same people over and over again, and I'm in there sometimes. But it's nice for them to come in because you get somebody who has no idea what they're doing whatsoever, and they can get an actual walkthrough on, look, this is how you do it, and this is the reasoning behind it, and that last bit is key.
Yeah, I'm very much into like the bespoke experience. I'm kind of the server mascot, and it's like, hey, Mara knows what she's doing, and I'm like, hey, here, let's like take you by the hand and like go into the baby steps, and eventually sometimes they get like I homegrew my team, and that's how it started. Like it's someone starts with the baby steps, and then eventually maybe they'll end up flying with me.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of how I ran into Spencer and Nick. We have a little Armada chat, and that's when I ran into Lem and a couple other people, and we were pretty like-minded for DPS. And I mean, I think maybe I was doing like 500K at the time, and we kind of got together and said, "What if we just support each other?" And we did that for a little bit on our own, and then I just happened to run into Nick one day, and the rest just kind of went from there.
I was gonna say for any of this type of stuff, like just getting in and starting to talk, and especially in the discords, you know, you can find people that have a mutual interest. Are going to be on around the same time as you. Just get involved, communicate.
Yep, it's just difficult with the community being so small is finding like-minded people who are like willing to, okay, I'll support for you for this run, I'll tank for that run, we'll DPS for this run. Finding people who aren't, I just want a DPS is a bit of a challenge.
Well, and the sad thing is like compared to other MMOs, there are so few people willing to like or interested in playing specific roles that aren't DPS. Like there are other games that like there are healers, there are tanks, there are people who just do these things, and all these other roles, all these non-DPS roles, are actually quite accessible.
Yeah, this game has the misfortune though of not being exactly like those other those other MMOs that people are so used to with the holy trinity of tank, healer, DPS. I was like, you can have those things here. Well, healer not so much, but you can have kind of those things here, but they're really only useful on a very small amount of maps.
I
Yeah,
mean, to an extent, but like there are ways to do this, and it's just that they're not traditional.
Yeah,
Like someone can, especially if you're playing in like small squads, like going into RTFOs as like a pair, like you can have a DPS player, and then you can have a support player that you're paired with who's carrying a large Gravwell and carrying a copy of FP&A and carrying PFP, because like now it's not that hard to pick that up. um
yeah, and the community is so small. It's not like WoW where you might have 30% of the population that wants to heal, but they have such a large population that that's not a big deal.
yeah, and like support these days is so accessible because like to have a basic support build, you need FP&A and Type 7s, and that's one purchase.
Yeah, to get started, it's almost all C-store. There's just one key lockbox purchase, but you don't even need that to get started.
Yeah, and then like so you can get into elite RTFOs to start, screwing around, and like you can tandem with a friend. You're doing some co-op play, and you're getting out there, and you're doing some things together. And you don't have to be record running. You don't have to be running ISEO all the time. You can just be doing that thing and just having someone with you buffing you up, because lower tier players are going to explode more often. But if you have someone with you and you're flying in coordination, that works.
I was gonna say, I think the someone with you is key, because I've known people who have gone to like random TFOs and are like, well, I brought my support build in and we didn't clear anything. I'm like, yeah, that's because you're gonna run into people who aren't doing any DPS, and you're supporting someone who's doing nothing. So nothing of nothing. Supporting nothing is still nothing.
Exactly. So like having that little bit of tandem play, having that little bit of cooperation, you can really make that work. You can really spec into a role and be that player. Like you can go in with a heavy tank on your own, and that's not too terribly hard to build.
We tried to do the looking for group Discord, and part of the goal there was to try and provide a place for people to connect to others. And if you were like a tanker support, to find a DPS player to queue up with. But the issue we had with that was it dropped. We dropped that Discord like a week before random elite TFOs were announced, and then it just had no interest at the time because everyone was just doing random elites.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I keep with the community being as small as it is. Like we were looking for just random people who had exhibited like they could do pretty much a decent amount of damage on their own, and see if they were interested in supports. But with the community so small, it's like if you can find all the people who are willing to do runs, are willing to support, have the stuff that they need to do the supporting, there's so few of those people already, and then you compound that with the fact that they're probably in a different time zone. Like some of the people that we found who are really good are on the opposite side of the planet.
Or don't, we typically are in voice chat for most of our runs too. So, finding someone who's also able to effectively communicate with us when we're doing the runs, it just is rough with how small the player base is.
Yeah, you just compound. It's like one thing on top of another, and it's like, oh, we found one guy out of like 90. 90 is like vastly overestimating how many people we talk to.
Yeah, I really want to try and inspire a culture shift on that, like, because that whole thing where like tanks and support exist, and with just a little bit of finding someone to regularly cooperate with, I know that people like that exist. I know that you have like your fleeties and the people you want to hang out with, like outside of like the DPS groups, outside of the DPS channels. There's just the regular average players who screw around with each other. You can have that. You can have that dynamic. It exists. You can play. I'm the support. You're the damage dealer. Let's go screw around in our TFOs.
Yep. And it's always nice when people express an interest. So, we're always down to help out.
Indeed.
Yep. All right, so we're coming up on the end of our time here. This has been really fun.
Cheops is always pleasant to talk to.
I am, and I always am. I'm constantly maligned by Spencer about how bad I am and how overbearing and how awful, and I keep sending all these horrible pictures to try and get him banned on YouTube. I will do that to Nick, but I won't do that to Spencer.
So hopefully those of you who've listened today have enjoyed our somewhat rambling talk. We covered a lot of ground.
I said yes.
We do have some interesting plans for the future. We have some. I have a few guests lined up. A lot of interesting topics to do, and I'm hopeful for the future of this program.
Yep, and I really look forward to getting more of getting into the weeds for new people if they really want to listen to how do I get better at the game, where do I start, little bits and pieces of how to go down the right path and which way to go. That's always nice for me because you get so many people can get frustrated. Well, they'll hear people talk about all this DPS, and then when they check theirs, it's not as good, and then they get a little bit annoyed and they kind of just drift away. And if we can catch them right before they drift away and try and focus them, focus their efforts, then I'm all about that because that keeps them playing.
Yeah, I think one of the big things for sure is just helping people understand that there are different environments also. Like a lot of the focus, for the higher end discussions is going to be on those really high end DPS runs. But those are not anywhere near what the average player is actually experiencing when they go in for a run. So helping them understand what the difference is and how to get into those different environments, I think that'd be very beneficial for people to understand.
And what I think a lot of people don't realize is we don't even experience those environments, but for a limited amount of time when we all just happen to get together.
Yeah.
So.
All right. I have been Mara.
I appreciate you, Mara. I have been Cheops.
Thank you for having me on. I am the most casual player in Star Trek Online. CasualSAB.
Spencer, just real quick though, I want you to say Sagan, Rapier, and Areore. I almost
Areore,
fucked that up.
Rapier, Sagan.
Okay, my day is complete. One day I'm just going to give you a Bible and just tell you. I want you to read the chapters, not the. I just want you to read the titles of the chapters. I don't care about anything else. Just pronounce these for me.
Terrible.
And I will have a good old sip of something to drink, and I will just sit back and laugh. But I love you anyway.
This is what I have to deal with every day.
I honestly, I love it. This is fantastic.
Well, we love you too.
You
only love everything when you get baked.
I mean, generally, yes, which is most of the time. So, yeah. All right. So, this has been the Captain's Table. I hope to see all of you in the future.
Absolutely. See you guys.
See you all around.